Out here, there's no one way of doing things. No unwritten rules. And no shortage of adventure. Because out here, the only requirement is having fun. Bank of America invites kids 6 to 18 to golf with us. For a limited time, sign them up for a free one-year membership, giving them access to discounted tee times at thousands of courses. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/golf with us. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America. Restrictions apply. See BofA.com/golf with us for complete details. Copyright 2025 Bank of America Corporation.
Llévate más de lo que esperas todos los días con el nuevo McValue en McDonald's. Ahora puedes comprar uno y sumarle otro por $1. Así que cuando tu equipo favorito enfrente a sus rivales, enfrenta tus antojos con $5 Meal Deals. Y si estás corriendo para alcanzar el desayuno, corre a la para llevarte ofertas antes del cutoff. Tú decides, y con McValue, tu decisión siempre rinde más. Precios y participación pueden variar. BOGO $1 válido para un producto de igual o menor valor. Debe estar registrado en Rewards para ofertas en el app.
Acura's all-new ADX, a compact SUV that isn't just built for one thing. It's precision-crafted for everything. To escape the grind with available all-wheel drive. To go with your flow with available Google built-in.
Hey Google, turn it up.
Okay, turning up the volume. And crafted to be heard with an available Bang & Olufsen premium sound system. The all-new Acura ADX, crafted to match your energy. Acura, precision-crafted performance.
Take your vibes and go, 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 go.
Google is a trademark of Google LLC.
Hi, this is Javon, your Blinds.com design consultant.
Oh, wow. A real person.
Yep. I'm here to help with everything from selecting the perfect window treatments to...
Well, I've got a complicated project.
No problem. I can even help schedule a professional measure and install. We can also send you samples fast and free.
I just might have to do more.
Whatever you need.
So the first room we're looking at is for...
Shop Blinds.com now and save up to 40% site-wide. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
You are now listening to the Dynasty Rewind.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dynasty Rewind. I'm your host, Michael Bauer, the best in the business, once again back in business, joined as always by my faithful co-host, Nate, Professor Christian. Nate, hello, and welcome back.
Thank you, Mike. Happy tax day to all those who celebrate. I unfortunately owe the federal government a good bit of money this year, so it was not very fun. Not very fun at all.
Hold on. I got something for that. I'm sorry to hear that. For the first time in years, I am getting money back.
Congratulations, Mike.
Yes, so I can reimburse myself for cremating my mother. So, yeah, for all those, I'm sorry I've been a little MIA online and everything like that. Unfortunately, a month ago, my mother did pass away unexpectedly. So it's just been a little hectic over here for the Bowers. Not looking for any sympathy, just giving you guys an update on what's going on in my life. So if your parents are still around and you're able to mend any wounds with them, you know, if there's anything going on, I recommend you do so. Because going to pick up the phone to call someone and not being able to do it is not something I wish upon anybody else. So hug and love your relatives, everybody, because you really don't know how much time you have left. 67, too young. And on that note, too, take care of yourselves, everybody, because I love my mother. Didn't take care of herself as good as she should have, despite my many pleading attempts to do so. You can't change people if they don't want to change. So that's that. But we have a doozy for you guys tonight. The draft is, as of this recording, a week and 2 days away. And Nate, I'm going to be seeing you. I'm going to be seeing some of the crew as well, all of those who can attend. If you want Nate's address to come attend the draft, please DM Sean _ I forget what his Twitter is, but go ahead, just hit up his X and DM him. He would be happy to give out the address to Nate's house. I actually have your address is like one address that I've memorized, by the way.
Wow, I'm impressed.
I don't know the zip code, but I know if I punch the first part of it into my GPS, it will go there. So I'm really looking forward to that. And to let you guys know, programming updates here for you as well. Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning, we will be live streaming for you guys. So after the first round, after the second, third, and then after day 3 of the draft, we're going to be bringing you guys some awesome live streams. Yeah, we're really looking forward to it. It's going to be a great time. So, get your questions ready. And as always with all live streams, super chat questions, not expected, but those questions will obviously be prioritized. And Nate and I were talking, we are planning on live streaming more frequently. Sometimes scheduling, it's just a little bit tough. So, but we're planning on putting an emphasis on that more in the future. Nate, what do you say? 7 times a week we live stream?
Every night and every morning.
We're shooting for at least once a month. I'd say.
Mike, I think that, like a coffee Saturday morning, a little coffee with Nate and Mike would sound quite nice.
That actually does sound really good to me. So, yeah, I would like that. Obviously, depending on weekends, some Saturdays I do have to work, even though it is optional. Gotta get that bread. So, let's get into it. So the draft week in today's way, as I mentioned, and we are doing our final pre-draft rookie rankings. Look, we're not going to have take lock though, right, Nate? If some of these guys fall, we will move them around. And I have seen, and I'm sure you've seen this before, people like, it's a bad take to rank someone differently because of their draft capital or the team they got drafted to. I think that's actually the wrong way to look at it. Landing spot matters. Path to playing time really matters. Draft capital matters a lot. So we're not going to get take lock. We're going to rank these guys now. I'm sure we'll be doing this again after the draft, but I do have one very quick discussion topic that I wanted to bring to your attention. Hey, what do you think is the most undervalued position in this year's class? We know it's not running back.
It's not running back.
That's stacked.
But Mike, I do have a good answer for you that you're going to like. I think the most undervalued position in this year's draft class is the tight end position. Yes. It is a rather deep tight end position. And it's one thing because from a fantasy perspective, if you don't play in tight end premium, it's really not going to matter that much for you. But there are a lot of NFL tight ends in this draft that I think will stick around as tight end 2s for teams for quite a while, be on rosters for quite a while. I think we're going to have, 6-8 guys that are going to be in, creating a good NFL career for themselves out of this draft class. And, some of those guys that look like they're going to be tight end 2s, 1 or 2 of them will probably hit and, make their way into being a starting tight end in the NFL. So I think we're going to have 4 or 5 starters out of this class. So I think this is a pretty strong tight end class. So if you play in tight end premium, it's a good year to go get yourself a mid-round tight end.
Yeah, I agree. There's going to be a lot of guys out there, and I think there's going to be some guys now with the tight end class. Of course, not everyone's going to be Brock Bowers. They're not going to be relevant right away. Some of these guys might take a year or two. That's just the tight end position. You look at guys like Dallas Goedert. I'm an Eagles fan, so that's a really good example. It took him a little bit to really kind of get going, and Zach Ertz had to leave. If he could stay healthy, obviously that would be a lot better. So we'll see what happens there. But this is going to be a really good class, so I'm looking forward to it. But Nate, start from the top and work our way down like we're filling out a lineup. Hit me with your top 5 pre-draft quarterback rankings.
All right. At quarterback 1, I have the assumed first overall pick in Cam Ward, likely going to the Tennessee Titans. Unless we see some incredible blockbuster deal, but I think they have their sights set on Cam Ward at this point. So Cam Ward at quarterback 1. I then have Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders at quarterback 2. Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss at quarterback 3. And then at 4, I have Jalen Milroe from Alabama, the athletic quarterback who has a lot of potential and is getting some first-round buzz. I believe he was invited to the first round, Mike. So that's going to make for some good TV as he sits in the green room, I think. Then Tyler Shuck out of Louisville is my quarterback 5, someone who's also been getting a lot of buzz, has snuck into some late first-round mocks, but seems more likely to be a second-round guy who, maybe the Giants or the Browns, maybe the Browns are starting Tyler Shuck this year. I'm interested to see what happens with him. I think he has a really good floor as a quarterback. Not sure what his ceiling and upside really is at this point. He's almost 26 years old. But Mike, that is my top 5. What about yours?
It would be funny though if they started Tyler Shuck because he's the same age as Kenny Pickett.
I believe Tyler Shuck was in the same recruiting class as Trevor Lawrence.
I don't know what to tell you.
It's been a while.
I guess. All right. So my number one is DJ Ungalila. I'm sorry, I meant my number one is Cam Ward. Then I have Shador Sanders, Jackson Dart. So our top three are the same.
Yep.
And here's where I differ a little bit. At number 4, I have Quinn Ewers. And then at number 5, I have Jalen Milroe. So Tyler Shuck did not make my top 5. And I liked what I saw from him at the Combine. I'm going to be looking into him a little bit more. If you'd like to hear our thoughts on Tyler Shuck, of course, I'm sure at some point we will be covering him on the Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. Head on over there. You do get a 1-week free trial. So go ahead, check that out. But Nate, you want to run through the who's, the what's, and the whys of your rankings?
I want to know why you have Quinn Ewers at quarterback 4. I didn't even think about putting him in my top 5, to be quite honest.
Well, and you know what, Nate, it's okay to be wrong. No, I'm just kidding. Look, there are some deficiencies in Quinn Ewers' game, and we could say the same thing about Jalen Milroe as well. I think the biggest concern for me about Quinn Ewers is his ability to stay healthy. Does have good command of an offense. I think he has an above average arm. I'm not going to sit here and say he has an elite arm by any means. He does have some mobility to him. I like the way he processes defenses a little bit better than Jalen Milroe. Now, athletically overall, Jalen Milroe takes the cake. Quinn Ewers, I do believe now I don't have the numbers up in front of me. This is just me going off what I saw on film. I do think his accuracy and his ability to lead receivers improved from 23 to 24, which is why I have him above Quinn Ewers. And I couldn't put Tyler Shuck on this when a guy like Quinn Ewers is out there. I do think the ceiling for a player like Quinn Ewers is higher than that of a Tyler Shuck. And that's nothing against Tyler Shuck by any means. This is a guy who could come in, start some games, help you win some games. But I think Quinn Ewers will likely have a longer NFL career, likely have more potential to give you fantasy points overall than a guy like Shuck.
All right. Betting on the upside there with the Texas guy.
Yes.
I get it. I think it's pretty obvious, both of us having Cam Ward at number 1.
Mm-hmm.
He offers the most upside, I think, of anyone in this draft outside of maybe Jalen Milroe if he hits like his 100th percentile outcome. But Cam Ward, cool and collected, great arm, great pocket presence, not really, going to give us many issues. He's going to start right away and make an impact, I think, pretty early on.
One issue I have with him, I do think he needs to get the ball out of his hands faster at times. And while he is cool in the pocket, offensive lines are going to break down a lot faster in the NFL than they will at Miami playing in the ACC. Can say the same thing about our number 2 as well. Holds on to the ball a little bit too long at times.
It's something I think we've seen from a lot of quarterbacks recently. Even going back to last year, Caleb Williams obviously held onto the ball a lot, and some other guys in the last couple of draft classes. A lot of college quarterbacks playing hero ball out there. So something to take a look at. But Shador Sanders, very accurate. I'm a little confused by how much he's been dropping in mock drafts as of late. I still think he's certainly worthy of a top 10 pick. I've seen him drop as far as like 21 to the Steelers, which I would personally hate because I think that'd be a great pickup for the Steelers that late in the first round. That's basically where they picked up Kenny Pickett, and I think Shador Sanders is a much, much better quarterback as a prospect than Kenny Pickett coming out of college. So I think it's very easy 1-2 here. Now, there are some people that like Dart more than Sanders. I have seen that. I think Dart is good, offers upside athletically. He's a good runner, good arm. You see him, read the field a little bit, but like I've said before, I didn't see any throws over the middle of the field while he was at Ole Miss. And, we've talked about this at length. Is it him? Is it the scheme? It's obviously a large part the scheme. And this kind of goes back to an interesting conversation we had with Justin Herbert and have had since he came out of college, where he was very limited within the Oregon scheme and wasn't able to show off some of the stuff that we then get to see in the NFL that has made him such a great quarterback.
True.
And with Jackson Dart, is that going to be the same conversation where a year or two from now, we're like, wow, how do we miss on Jackson Dart being, the best quarterback in this class? Well, maybe because we didn't get to see what he really could do in the Ole Miss scheme. Or maybe it's going to turn out, we should have known about Jackson Dart. He only, threw outside and on screens and things like that because that was the Ole Miss scheme. That's what he could do. So I think there's a large variance with outcomes for Jackson Dart, but I do feel really good about him. And I think he's going to, I don't know if he's going to be a long-term NFL starter. I think he's kind of in that middle ground, but I think he's going to start for at least a year or two and have a good opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right, by the way. Kenny Pickett was drafted with the 20th overall pick.
Yeah. And that was the draft that Malik Willis supposed to go 101. Didn't happen.
And, for the record, everyone, this is why I like doing my rookie drafts after the draft. So,
man, I know someone in Debbie that paid a lot of money or a lot of picks and players for Malik Willis before the draft. And sorry for that guy.
I mean, hey, if you want to equate picks to money, if you're paying a lot of picks and you're not winning any money, you paid out for it. And I get it.
Time is money, then hey, you're wasting some money.
Yeah. Nate, you have anything else you want to say about quarterbacks before we move on?
Nope. I think we've talked a good bit about this class. I think we have our pretty obvious tiers. Cam Ward at the top. I think Shador Sanders, closer, I think, in my opinion, to Cam Ward than I think a lot of people have him. But we have 3 first-round quarterbacks here with Cam Ward, Shador Sanders, Jackson Dart. And then you have your second-round guys that have some upside with Jalen Milroe, Quinn Ewers. I don't know if he's going to go second round, Mike. Be ready from the drop a little bit. And then you got a guy like Tyler Shuck, who I think has a really good floor as a quarterback. You watch his film, he's got a great arm, great deep ball, accurate. Looks like a professional already, but he's going to be almost 26. He's going to be 26, I believe, by the end of the season. So they said if he's drafted in the first round, his rookie contract won't even be up before he turns 30. So, how much more development can we get out of Tyler Shuck? That's one question I do have about him.
NFL Mock Draft Database has Quinn Ewers as a 4th-round pick, which that seems a bit too low.
I think it's going to be a day 3 pick, Mike. I think it's going to be a 4th or 5th rounder.
Well, and hey, look, if that's the case, I'm more than happy to readjust my rankings, like I said before. So, Nate, why don't you lead us off with the most stacked position in this year's class?
Yes, this is the position that we're all excited about. I think it's pretty obvious who the RB1 is in this class. It's Ashton Jeanty, with pretty consensus across the board. We love ourselves some Jeanty around here. Number 1, go Broncos, BSU on that blue field. They've put out a lot of good running backs in the NFL, Mike, going back. You got Jay Ajayi, you got Doug Martin. There's at least 2 or 3 other names I could mention here. Alexander Madison, another one, real quick.
Oh, yeah.
But Ashton Jeanty, I think he's going to be the best of all of them. I'm very excited to watch what he does at the next level, because it wouldn't surprise me if he got into the field and pretty quickly was a top 10 back in the NFL. And, a year or 2 from now was considered a top 5 back. That's kind of the expectations I think a lot of us have for him. He's been rated a top 5 player on most people's boards, regardless of position. So very, very exciting to get to watch him on Sundays. After Ashton Jeanty, I got Trey Henderson as my RB2. I think that's a bit more contrarian than consensus, but I really love the home run ability of Travion Henderson combined with his physicality and power, combined with his receiving ability and pass blocking ability. I really think he hits, all the boxes that I want out of a running back and does all of them really well, has a ton of explosiveness, a ton of athleticism. And, we go back and forth with a long speed in the NFL. How often doesn't really matter, but Travion Henderson's one of those guys that gets himself into opportunities pretty often to hit those home runs. And then he has the speed to finish them off as well. So I love what he brings to the table. I think he's got a ton of upside in this class. And I think there's a decent chance he's a 1st-round pick. But at RB3, I do have someone who is considered a pretty consensus 1st-round pick at this point, Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. Love what he brings with a power, size, speed combo. He's someone that you can give 25, 30 touches to a game and you're going to be good. Is going to give you the upside as well on the receiving game, and someone that can get in the end zone. So a lot of good things to say about those 3. I think that's really, the 3 guys that can go in the 1st round. Those guys really give us the most upside. And then number 4, I got Travion Henderson's teammate, Quinshon Judkins, who I think is going to be a really good pro back he does have some explosiveness. Maybe doesn't have the greatest long speed, but he's got a good explosiveness. Showed that off the combine with a good 40, good explosiveness in the broad jump and the vertical as well. Got good power. I love what he brings to the table as an NFL runner. He's what a lot of teams are going to be looking for. And then at 5, Mike, even though I talked him down last week, I do have Caleb Johnson in here. He brings a good level of upside as well as a good floor.
That one shocked me.
I know. I was looking at somebody else, trying to see who else I could put at RB5. And who I wanted to put at RB5, but I got to be honest, I got to be realistic with myself and expected draft capital. So I did put Caleb Johnson at RB5. Other names I did consider here, Cam Scatterbo. Is someone I considered RB5, but the person who I wanted to put at RB5, as you well know, is Devin Neal out of Kansas, who is going to be my honorable mention here because I think he in my eyes, is a top 5 back in this class, but his projected draft capital is 4th, 5th round. So
Yeah,
I got to be honest with myself and understand that the opportunity might not be there if he is a day 3 pick.
yeah. And so this, believe it or not, because this position is so stacked in this draft class, this was not, I mean, obviously Ashton Genty is my number one. That was cut and dry. Number 2, Omarion Hampton, who, hey, if Ashton Genty wasn't in this class, he'd be my running back 1 easily. Then I went Quinshon Judkins over Travion Henderson. I just think the pure physicality of Quinshon Judkins will lead him to being a safer floor, lower ceiling than Travion Henderson. I would say with Travion, higher ceiling, lower floor, just my opinion. Then I went Caleb Johnson at number 5. But look, number 5 was not easy for me. I was kind of going back and forth because I like Cam Scatterbo. Okay, I like Devin Neal. I even thought about DJ Giddens. And then there's some other guys who weren't really in consideration that I just like. We'll be talking about tonight on the Patreon. I told you before where to go find that. But why don't you run through these running backs for me? I mean, look, for me, Ashton Genty, we don't need to go into it anymore. How about I just tell you why I separated these guys from each other? How's that sound? So look, Omarion Hampton, do everything. He's a great receiver, pounder between the tackles, and he can grind down a game, which is why I would have him over someone like Travion Henderson. In my opinion, is Henderson more explosive and a better receiving back? Yes, but Omarion's not a slouch as a receiver, and he can grind the games out. Quinshon, I put him above Travion just because of the physicality factor of his game, and he's also not a slouch in the receiving game either. You know, although Henderson is probably the best receiving back in this game, if you watch Ashton Genty's film from 2024, you might be like, he's not that great of a receiver. Go back a year because he is. You know why he didn't catch the ball a lot this past year? He didn't have to. When you're running for 200 yards in the first half, you're not going to catch any balls. It's
Mike, in the preseason, I said Ashton Genty is the best receiving back in college football.
You did say that.
And that he didn't even have to do it this year, but he's still one of the best in college football if he needs to do it. So that's what I think a lot of people don't understand is this guy is not just going in as the RB1 because of what he did on the ground.
Yeah.
But, you know, you watch the 2024 film, you don't see a lot of receiving work, but you go back to 2023, I think he had 45 receptions or something like that over the course of the year. An incredible receiving back. That's really one of his biggest strengths. And he proved that he can do everything. So, like, there is a lot of upside. Like, I mean, I don't want to say Ashton Genty is going to, like, go into the NFL and, you know, I don't know if he's going to be Saquon level just because I don't know if he has that athleticism that Saquon has. But he's so good at everything that, like, he could produce at similar levels. You know, that is within the realm of possibilities with Ashton Genty moving forward.
For sure. Then at number 5, I do have Caleb Johnson. Just another physical back who, despite playing for Iowa, is an above average receiving back as well. And, you know, before this past season, we did make a top 5 way too early running backs video, and we did not rank them. We just said, these are our top 5 running backs. And we got a pretty hateful comment saying, how do you not have Ashton Genty at number 1? Well, it's really easy. We didn't have anybody at number 1. We just said, these are the top 5 running backs to look out for this season. That's all we said.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just happened to talk about Ashton Genty last. It's just how it was.
Sorry. So I want to keep my Boise State guy for the end.
Look, he had a heck of a season, man. No one's gonna...
Absolutely did. Mike, I want to ask you this question. With these RBs in this class, we know it's a stacked class.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, not a stacked class.
No.
We struggled to find an RB1. How far down your list do you have to go before one of these guys is not your RB1 in last year's class?
I mean, looking up last year's class,
got Jonathan Brooks, Bucky Irving, Jalen Wright, Trey Benson, Braylon Allen, Blake Corum, Marshawn Lloyd, Tyrone Tracy.
I mean, Bucky Irving was probably the best guy out of that class.
But as prospects.
I
think most of us had Jonathan Brooks as RB1. RIP his knee.
Yeah, as prospects, I would slide him in 6 or 7 on this list.
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure Genty, Henderson, Hampton, Judkins all would have easily been RB1 last year. And I think there's a chance, you know, Caleb Johnson even could have been the RB1 last year.
Yeah. Devin Neal could have been the RB1 last year, honestly.
I mean, honestly, maybe. Should have came out last year, man.
Yeah, he really should have. For sure. So
would have made some some better money.
Yeah.
Would have definitely been a day 2 pick last year.
Easily. Yeah, easily.
All right.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
So good, so good, so good.
New markdowns up to 70% off are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Fresh kicks, spring tops, new dresses. There's always a score.
I mean, the denim section is unreal.
Why do I rack? All the dresses.
I always find something amazing.
Head to your Nordstrom Rack store to find can't-miss deals on all the spring things. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
All right, Nate, we are back. Let's talk about wide receivers. Go ahead and hit me with your top 5.
All right, at number 1, because I'm feeling pretty confident this guy's playing wide receiver now, Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter is my wide receiver 1. Sounds like he's going to be the number 2 pick to the Cleveland Browns, and the Cleveland Browns are going to play him at wide receiver. And I don't know who's throwing him the ball. Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco just re-signed with the Browns.
Oh God!
And the best quarterback they've had since Baker Mayfield. So, maybe it's Joe Flacco. I don't know, but either way, Travis Hunter.
Real quick, what you're saying is he's the best quarterback since the guy they traded away, so that they could sign the guy that sucks.
Yeah, basically.
You go, Cleveland.
Yeah, Cleveland. Way to go. Really, really handled the quarterback situation so well over the past 20 years. But wide receiver 1 for me, Travis Hunter. Incredible athleticism, incredible ball skills, great ball tracking ability. Can make people miss after the catch like no one else. He's really a very, very special player. And even if he didn't win the Heisman because he was a 2-way player, I'd still think, he would be just in this conversation for wide receiver 1 as well. He's that good. And I think if he does end up playing full-time wide receiver, and even if it's just a little bit of cornerback, maybe he's not a full 2-way player, I think he has a ton of potential at wide receiver. I think he can be a true wide receiver 1 in the NFL. I don't know if he's going to – I will say I think in the realm of possibilities, I think Travis Hunter has the upside to be on the same level as the top guys in the NFL wide receiver. I think his potential is a Justin Jefferson, a Jamar Chase. I think he can be a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. Now, maybe realistically, maybe he slots in more like at 8 or something like that, because not everyone's going to hit their 100th percentile potential. But I think he's got that potential. And I think even at a floor, you're probably talking a top 20 wide receiver in the NFL. So I love this guy as wide receiver 1. Ted McMillan is my wide receiver 2. I think he's a very high floor, low upside, not low upside, but a lower upside than Travis Hunter. Wide receiver. I think Ted McMillan can be a wide receiver 1 at the next level. I heard someone, I think it was Dan Bergler from The Athletic, mention that he looked at Ted McMillan as like a wide receiver 1B. I think that's a good way to put it, where he's a little bit better than a wide receiver 2, but he's not on that same level as a Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. I think maybe for him, like his ceiling is more maybe that T. Higgins kind of upside, where, I mean, that's still a really good wide receiver.
I'll take that.
I don't know if he has the athleticism to be a T. Higgins. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't think that T. Higgins tested super, super great, to be honest. But I think that McMillan offers so much with his contested catch ability, his ability to get down the field and win along the sideline and just make some incredible catches. And we saw him take over games in the college level, 300-plus receiving yards to start with the year. So Hunter, McMillan at 3, I got Luther Burden. He's my guy. Great yards after catch ability. I think he's a better receiver than a lot of people have given him credit for. You go back and look at the 2023 film, you see a more complete receiver, I think, than you see in 2024 because of how the offense used him. He played inside, he played outside, depending on the year. I do think there's a large variance of outcomes that come with Luther Burden, but his upside is, I think he's got like the second highest upside in this class behind Travis Hunter. So a little bit of risk, but some high reward there with Luther Burden if he does what I'm hoping he does. And then at wide receiver 4, Matthew Golden, 4.29 speed is incredible when you're that good of a route runner, and he has the ball tracking ability along the sideline that we saw. Did struggle with drops in his first couple of years at Houston, but cleaned that up at Texas. So as long as that's good moving forward, I think he slots in very nicely as a wide receiver 4 with the upside that he brings with that speed. But not to be forgotten is my wide receiver 5, Emeka Egbuka, who I could have easily put at wide receiver 4 and swapped him with Golden, because Egbuka is such a pro-ready player, such a great route runner, such a pro-ready player. This guy is going to possibly be a first-round pick, maybe a second-round pick. Seems like he's going to be limited to the slot, but he's great at picking up yards after the catch. He's athletic himself. He got great hands, does everything you want him to do exactly the way you want him to do. I'm excited about this 5. After this 5, it does get a little iffy for me. Yeah. There's some guys that, definitely offer upside, but when we really take a step back and look at it from an NFL level, a lot of question marks. But these 5 guys I'm really excited about. So Hunter, McMillan, Burden, Golden, Egbuka.
Yeah, after this top 5, there's guys that I kind of like. There's Jalen Knoll, Jack Beck, Isaiah Bond, Alec Aomanor, Trey Harris, guys like that, who I think will be pretty decent value picks, like second, third round of your rookie drafts. But it does taper off after the top 5. And mine are Travis Hunter. And this is the only one that you and I agree on, by the way. Then at number 2, I have Luther Burden. I just think he's a little bit more dynamic than my number 3, Ted McMillan. Ted McMillan is a pure wide receiver, and I do think Luther Burden can be used in a bigger variety of ways than Ted McMillan can. Use him as a runner. I think he's a much better screen receiver than Ted McMillan is. Number 4, I have Egbuka there over Matthew Golden. Pardon me. And I just think, I know I like Matthew Golden as a route runner, but Egbuka, I do feel, is just a pure route runner. I mean, this guy's routes are so crisp. I think he's fantastic. And like you said, Matthew Golden limited most likely to the slot in the NFL. That's not going to be the case with Egbuka, although he played predominantly in the slot at Ohio State. He can bump outside as well. So I think the situational versatility there is just what bumps me up a little bit more. Okay. But I mean, look, my 4 and 5, they're close.
Yeah.
If you told me flip a coin and whoever it lands on, that's who you get, I'm going to go, cool, I'll take him by all means. That one, it could have easily been 4A, 4B.
Yeah, I think it's like Travis Hunter, and then it's Burden and McMillan, and then it's Egbuka and Golden, and like some like mini tiers there.
Yeah,
I'd be kind of happy with either one of those guys. I don't think Matthew Golden's gonna be limited to the slot the next level. He did play outside a good bit at Texas. I think he's gonna be a flanker at the next level.
You just said he was likely going to be limited to slot.
I said Egbuka is going to be limited to the slot.
You said Matthew Golden.
Maybe I did. If I did, I'm sorry. I think Egbuka is more going to be limited to the slot.
Tell us below, because that's what I heard.
and Golden, I think, is going to be able to do a little bit more outside. I think he'll be a flanker at the next level. That's why a lot of people like him going to the Cowboys right now, to kind of take something off on the outside. He can stretch the defense deep with a 4.29 speed, but he's also a good route runner. So, he can do a variety of things out there. So we'll see. I hear people like, oh, well, Golden's not got good size. He's 5'11", 195. I'm like, when is that not good size for a wide receiver in the NFL? It was 20 years ago when we expected all the wide receivers to be 6'6", 240.
That's
Like
literally 1 inch shorter and 30 pounds heavier than Devonta Smith.
Yeah, I mean, come on. 5'11", 195 is totally fine.
Yeah.
We got guys out here who are 165 pounds soaking wet who are dominating the NFL. Like, I don't want to hear it.
You know, whenever people say that, let me just bring it up real quick. But Odell Beckham is not much bigger than that. He's 5'11 as well. I don't have a weight for him here. He's 5'11", 200. So he's essentially the same size as Odell Beckham Jr. And everyone was really excited about him for a while too. Now, unfortunately, his career took the injuries and stuff like that. It wasn't the turn that we expected. But still, just
everyone getting Mike Evans. Come on, what are we doing here? You know, if you're 5'9", 170 pounds, I think you might be a little small. But I think 5'11", that's the threshold. You mean, if you hit 5'11", you're good. You hit 180, 185, you're good. Deontay Johnson, I think, was like 5'11", 180 when he came in. So I'm not worried about 5'11", 190, 195.
No, not at all.
Don't listen to the size queens.
Don't listen to my wife. Anyway, Nate, anything else on wide receivers before we move on to tight ends?
No, let's get to the most undervalued position of the draft.
And my favorite. What do you got for me?
All right. I think we have a pretty similar ranking here until the very end, but still the same names in this. I got Tyler Warren at number 1, but it's very close to my number 2, Colston Loveland. I would go either way depending on my scheme and what I want out of my tight end. I think both offer a ton of upside. I think Warren is a guy that you can really build your offense around, and there's no one in this class that can do anything like he does after the catch. He is so versatile. He's incredible after the catch, and you can build an offense around him. Colston Loveland, I think, can be a really, really good receiving tight end. Maybe you don't build your entire offense around him, but he could be a really large contributor and someone that you know is always going to do exactly what you need to do him to do. He's going to run the right route. He's going to make the catch. He's a much better route runner than Tyler Warren is. Colston Loveland almost looks like a wide receiver out there with his route running. He can drop his hips. He's got good movement, doesn't waste a lot of steps at the top of his stem. I love his route running, some of the best route running I've seen from a tight end recently. So both those guys, great, definitely first rounders. Any team that gets them is going to be happy. At number 3, I got Mason Taylor out of LSU, who I think is a pretty good tight end himself. He's going to be a good blocker. He's going to have good athleticism to be able to extend the play, get those yards after the catch. He's a good receiver. Had 3 years of solid production at LSU. I don't know if he's going to be a first rounder or not. I think he's a really solid early day 2 pick, and I think that he can, develop into what could be a top 12 tight end for you in fantasy football. So I like Mason Taylor a good bit. So Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland in a tier, then Mason Taylor kind of in his own tier. And then I get into this next tier, kind of like mid to late day 2. There's a lot of guys in this tier of mid to late day 2 picks, early day 3 picks who could all be contributors at some point in their career. But for me, at number 4, I got Gunnar Helm out of Texas. What he does as a blocker, as a route runner with his hands, doesn't offer as much upside athletically as some of these other guys in this class, but he's really, really good at what he does, and he does it the correct way, and he's got really soft hands. Kind of reminds me a bit of maybe Jake Ferguson, and, not maybe having that top-level upside, but can be a really consistent player for you and still be a really good fantasy contributor. Yeah. And then at number 5, I got Terrence Ferguson, who I've rated just a slight bit lower than Gunnar Helm, but does offer more athletically than Helm. He's a much more athletic player. I believe he ran like a low 4.6 at the combine. So he's one of the more athletic tight ends in this draft class. Like what he brings after the catch, as well as the speed in his route running. Don't think he's quite as refined as Helm. So that's where I kind of make the difference there. But if you wanted Ferguson over Helm, I'd have no problem with it. Speaking of, Mike, what's your top 5 here?
My top 5 close to yours, except the last 2, Tyler Warren. And like you said, after the catch, there's just no other tight end like him. And I completely agree with what you said. Tyler Warren, you can build an offense around him. Colston Loveland will be a fantastic addition to any offense, however. I do have Mason Taylor as well at number 3. I agree with everything you said about him. He's just pro ready. And then I do have Terrence Ferguson at 4 over Gunnar Helm. Now, Terrence Ferguson does lack in I think blocking and physicality, which when you look at him, you're like, a guy this big should be a little bit more physical. But it is Oregon too. Maybe they didn't ask him to play that way. However, I do think he is a much more dynamic playmaker overall than a guy like Gunnar Helm. Now, Gunnar Helm, he can rip off some big runs, but Terrence Ferguson, to me, has a little bit more wiggle after the catch and ability to shed defenders. Gunnar Helm's like, you know what? I'm just going to run this dude over. Terrence Ferguson can do that to an extent, but as far as evading defenders and just overall long speed and breaking long plays, I feel he has the edge there, which is why I have him at 4 instead of 5. But again, like the wide receivers, this one is close for me. Flip a coin again. Hey, you got Gunnar Helm instead of Terrence Ferguson. Cool. I'm fine with that. I'm onto the taxi squad you go for this year.
Yeah, exactly. Let's be realistic.
Yeah. Nate, before we get out of here, and by the way, don't forget about Ben Yurosek. I think his draft capital will be better than what the combine expected. Had to throw that out there. You had your projected first round.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, a rookie mock draft. Or I'm sorry, rookie draft first round.
Yeah, I was trying to get my thoughts out of my head, onto paper or the screen relatively. So I came up with, my top 12. If I was to, rank my top 12 position list, just, regardless of position, who's my top 12 if I was making a first round of just my rankings. So I wanted to throw this in at the end just to, to give an idea of where I'm at. But this is absolutely subject to change, of course, after the draft. I might even change it before the draft because I'm still, when you get to the late first, you want to kind of look at, the positions and stuff like that. I'm going to say that this might have a slight tight end premium. I do like my tight ends either way. Even if there's not a tight end premium, I still like to have a good tight end. So I do value tight ends maybe a little bit more than if you didn't have a tight end premium. So just throwing that out there. I do have both Warren and Loveland in this top 12, but I think that's fine regardless. They're both first round picks.
Yeah.
At number 1, I got Ashton Genty, easy. Number 2, I got Cam Ward, especially, and this is a super flex. At number 3, I got Travion Henderson, my RB2. But number 4, I do have Marion Hampton. And then at number 5, I have Travis Hunter. And this is I think this is a tier break after 5. I think 1 through 5, you're getting stud elite players. You get 3 really good running backs. You get a good quarterback with high upside, and you get possibly, one of the best wide receivers in the class, and maybe someone that can really develop into an elite wide receiver in the NFL. So those top 5 I'm really excited about. At 6, I got Ted McMillan. 7, Shador Sanders. 8, Luther Burden. 9, Matthew Golden. And sorry, between Burden and Golden, I think there's a tier break. You got McMillan, Sanders, Burden as like another tier of really good, ready to go starters. And then we get into some question marks and then the really good tight ends with Matthew Golden at 9, Tyler Warren at 10, Colston Loveland at 11, and Quinshawn Judkins at 12. Now, I will say
it's a good first round.
Thank you. I think so as well. I think you're getting a good player in just about every single position there. I will say out of those 12, the riskiest player I think is Matthew Golden because Matthew Golden was a big pre-draft riser. And whenever this pre-draft risers and you're like, oh, but trust the film, the analytical doesn't look great. Okay, well, the film does look good, but also you go back to Houston, he has drops. He's always been good, and he was a top recruit coming out of high school as well. But he's not as bulletproof a prospect or as, the production profile as much as these other guys. So I will say the riskiest first-round pick out of that 12 is Matthew Golden. I do think that, especially with the expectations that are not going to be placed on him. If Matthew Golden was a second-round pick, he's not going to be a bust at all. Like I think he exceed expectations. But as a first-round pick, some people have him as the first guy off the board. I think we got to be realistic with our expectations for Matthew Golden. And then I did want to mention I don't have Emeka Egbuka or Jackson Dart in my first round. If they are first rounders, which I think Emeka Egbuka, it's a coin flip if he's a first rounder or not. It just depends on how, what the wide receiver run looks like in the 20s. We've seen, 5 wide receivers go in that second half of the first round before. It could just be like 2 guys. So we'll see what that run is at the end of the first. And then Jackson Dart, it seems pretty likely he's going to be a first round pick, but I'm not setting it in stone yet. Seems pretty likely, but I'm not setting in stone yet because we have seen quarterbacks fall before if the teams don't love them. But if he is a first rounder, I usually tell people, go get the first round quarterback. Don't let him fall out of the first. So he'd probably be sitting there around 10, 11, 12.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. So that's a nice little first round that Nate mapped out for you. So I appreciate that. Hey, again, you want to show up if you're doing a rookie draft in person, go ahead and click on the link below. Get yourself some Dynasty Rewind merch. You got to rep the brand and let everybody know that you're here to win this whole thing again. Patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. Try it a week for free. It is on me. And until next time, everybody, for Nate, I'm Mike. Thanks for tuning in.